Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into Dr. Kim's incredibly cinematic lecture series on electrochemistry. We're going to translate microscopic electron transfers into the macroscopic power that literally drives our modern world. We'll be looking closely at the precise mechanics of how chemical energy becomes electrical energy, and of course vice versa.
Here is our roadmap for today. 1. The redox reaction engine. 2. Galvanic cells. 3. Measuring electromotive force. 4. Cracking cell notation. And 5. Electrolytic cells. Let's jump right in.
Section 1. The redox reaction engine.
Okay, we really have to start with the fundamental engine driving all of electrochemistry. None of our batteries or industrial processes would even exist without these exact chemical reactions, the ones where electrons are directly exchanged. At the core, we've got two paired concepts, oxidation and reduction. Oxidation is strictly losing electrons, and reduction is gaining them. Think of electrons as, well, the currency of chemistry, right? In this microscopic economy, oxidation is spending and reduction is earning. And since an electron can't just vanish into thin air, these two are always coupled. If one thing loses an electron, something else is definitely gaining it.
To lock this vocabulary in your brain so you never mix them up, just remember the classic. Leo the lion says grr. Lose electrons, oxidation. Gain electrons, reduction. It sounds simple, almost too simple, but trust me, when you're looking at complex cell diagrams later on, having a foolproof trick like this is an absolute lifesaver.
Now, a quick heads up on terminology, because this catches people out. When we talk about the agents of these reactions, the naming feels kind of backwards. A reducing agent is the substance giving up its electrons, so it's causing reduction in something else. But by losing those electrons, the reducing agent itself is actually being oxidized. On the flip side, the oxidizing agent accepts electrons, meaning it gets reduced. Just remember, the agent's name describes what it does to the other chemical, not what's happening to itself. Section 2. Galvanic cells and harnessing energy.
So, now that we've got a handle on this flowing electron currency, the big question is, how do we physically capture it to do actual work? Enter the galvanic cell, named after Luigi Galvani. A galvanic cell turns spontaneous chemical energy straight into electrical energy. And honestly, this can happen pretty much anywhere, even inside a lemon. If you stick a galvanized zinc nail and a copper coin into a lemon, the acidic juice acts as an electrolyte. That sets off a spontaneous redox reaction. Electrons desperately want to flow from the zinc over to the copper, generating a small but very real electrical current.
But if we want to harness that energy efficiently, we need a slightly more sophisticated setup, like the classic Daniell cell you see here. Instead of tossing everything into one big container, we deliberately split the reaction into two separate half-cell compartments. We've got a zinc electrode in a zinc solution and a copper electrode in a copper solution, all hooked up with a conductive wire. By literally physically separating the oxidation from the reduction, we're forcing those electrons to travel through the wire, which gives us a highly usable electrical current.
Let's break down the anatomy of this setup. The electrode where oxidation goes down, where electrons are lost, is the anode. Since it's producing those electrons, it acts as the negative terminal. The electrode where reduction happens is the cathode, our positive terminal, and then there's the salt bridge. The crucial takeaway here is that while electrons are flowing continuously through the wire from the negative anode to the positive cathode, the salt bridge is working behind the scenes to maintain the balance of ions in the solutions. Without that salt bridge neutralizing the charge buildup, the whole reaction would shut down almost instantly.
Section 3. Measuring electromotive force, or EMF.
All right, our chemical engine is built and purring, but we need a standard way to measure its output, basically the horsepower of our electrochemical cell. You'll hear the term electromotive force, or EMF, all the time. But is it actually a physical, mechanical force like gravity? No, absolutely not. Despite the slightly confusing name, EMF is actually a measure of potential. Think of it as the electrical pressure that's driving those electrons from the anode through the wire and over to the cathode. We measure this pressure in volts, where 1 volt is the potential required to transport 1 joule of energy per coulomb of charge.
But to measure pressure, you've got to have a baseline, right? You can't measure the height of a mountain if you don't know where sea level is. So, to organize the relative EMF of all possible half reactions, scientists literally set a universal baseline of exactly 0.00 volts. This is the standard hydrogen electrode, or SHE. Every other chemical's potential to gain or lose electrons is measured relative to this exact 0 point.
Take a look at this. Notice how perfectly these elements are organized based on their standard reduction potentials.
You've got lithium sitting at the top with a highly negative value of negative 3.05 volts. That makes it an incredibly strong reducing agent. It loves to undergo oxidation and just give its electrons away. Then contrast that with fluorine down at the bottom at positive 2.87 volts. Fluorine is an absolute powerhouse of an oxidizing agent. It is desperate to grab electrons and be reduced. By combining different elements from a table like this, we can calculate the exact voltage, or EMF, our hypothetical battery is going to pump out.
Section 4. Cracking cell notation.
Because constantly sketching out beakers, wires, and salt bridges gets old fast, chemists came up with a highly specific shorthand to express these cells. Just look at this short sequence. This single line perfectly represents the entire Daniell cell we were looking at earlier. We can see the elements involved, their ionic states, even the 1 molar concentration of their aqueous solutions enclosed in those parentheses. But how exactly are we supposed to read this? It is all about following the electrons. By convention, the left side always represents the anode, where oxidation happens and the whole journey starts. The right side is the cathode, where reduction takes place. See that single vertical line? That's a phase boundary, like the physical border between a solid zinc electrode and the aqueous zinc ions floating in the liquid. The double vertical line right in the middle is our salt bridge, separating the two half cells. When you read this shorthand from left to right, you are literally tracking the physical flow of electrons from their source all the way to their final destination.
Section 5. Electrolytic cells and reversing the flow.
So far, we've only been talking about galvanic cells, those spontaneous reactions that naturally generate electricity. But what if we want to force a non-spontaneous reaction to happen? That's where the electrolytic cell comes into play, and it is essentially the exact opposite of a galvanic cell. While a galvanic cell turns chemical energy into electrical energy spontaneously, an electrolytic cell actually requires an external power source, like a battery you plug into the wall, to force a reaction to occur. It's taking electricity and converting it back into chemical energy.
When you compare the two side by side, there's a massive distinction you have to notice. The terminals actually flip. In an electrolytic cell, because we're using an outside battery to shove electrons into the system, the cathode, which is still where reduction happens by the way, now becomes the negative terminal. The anode, where electrons are being forcefully ripped away, becomes the positive terminal. The chemical rules of oxidation at the anode and reduction at the cathode stay perfectly intact, but the electrical signs of the terminals get completely reversed by that external power source.
Now, why on earth would we go through all this trouble to run a chemical reaction backwards? Because this forced reversal is incredibly useful for industrial manufacturing. What you're seeing here is an electrolytic tank. By submerging a metal object and applying that external current, we purposefully force metal cations out of the solution to reduce and deposit as solid metal right onto our object. That's electroplating. It's how we plate things with copper, silver, or gold. And hey, it's also exactly how we recharge our lithium-ion batteries every single night.
Which brings us to our final takeaway. From the spontaneous little trickle of power inside a lemon to the heavy forced chemistry of an industrial electroplating tank, the entire thing comes down to the redox engine. By grasping these electrochemical basics from Dr. Kem's lecture, how to separate oxidation and reduction, measure potential pressure, and harness or reverse that flow, we reveal the fundamental mechanics driving our modern, electrified world. So I'll leave you with this. The next time you plug your smartphone into the wall, do you know exactly which way those electrons are flowing?